Hi everyone. So excited. We've already have a couple of people waiting backstage. I wanted to welcome you all. And of course, always starting early to make sure that the sound is good. And I want you all to say hi because I want to see who's here. I tend to have a lot of enthusiastic people who come in early, so it's exciting. I'll tell you all a little story before we get started. Um, Last week, my microphone wasn't working and I thought I was speaking to it the entire time. But literally, after the live was over, I go and watch the replay and I'm like, oh my God, why does my sound so boxy? And then I'm like freaking out. I'm like, oh my God, this is horrible. My microphone wasn't working. The sound doesn't, come across professional. And I was, complaining to my partner, and it's the end of the world, and blah, 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 which is what we go through as people who are high achievers. And then I get a whole bunch of people sending me messages and saying, oh my God, this was an awesome live. This was one of the best. And I'm like, huh. So that goes to show, sometimes we become such high achievers. And this actually even goes to interviews, and we think in our head that we did something that screwed everything up, but in reality, no one even noticed. So that's just my little warm up story to help us all get into the group of things. Happy Monday. If some of you are new, the reason I do these is because my goal is to make career coaching more accessible to people. I see a lot of call-in shows where people can call and ask an expert a question, but there isn't one for careers. There's one for finance, there's one for romance, but nothing for careers. And this is why I decided to launch this initiative. And yes, this is a gaming chair. Blame it on one of my clients who actually works at Red Hat. He has one too. And so he hooked me up. Amazing. All right, everyone. So I am going to go in and get started. And let me just quickly refresh here. By the way, if you ever have issues with the live, if it jams on you, if it crashes, just refresh and it should be fine. And I find that when you maximize the screen for some reason, it doesn't work very well. But when you resize the screen a little bit, maybe because it's not taking as much bandwidth, then it should work okay. Or you can leave and come back, and that also can help. Okay, so we got a number of eager people backstage, and I'm gonna get started. And the first person that we have here is Biljana. I hope that I pronounced your name correctly. Yay! Okay, bringing you on stage. Welcome, welcome, my friend. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you. Thank you so much for the opportunity too for this.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, so you're in New York, right?
I'm actually in Macedonia in Europe.
Okay, welcome. What time is it over there?
It's 6 o'clock now in the evening.
Oh, wow. So you're like, way ahead of us.
Yes, I'm in the
Beautiful.
future.
Yes,
Yeah.
you're calling from the future. I find it funny when that happens. Okay, so you have a question, and I'm curious about what your question is. Why don't you share with us?
Sure. Right now, I'm just going through this weird stage. I just finished a web development boot camp in October, and I'm like transitioning back into working. I've been like a stay-at-home mom for the past 10 years. And I've it's like 2 months since I finished my boot camp, and I've created projects and all of that stuff. I've applied to over 70 companies, and I got like 12 application responses and all rejections. And I just feel like, I don't know, kind of distraught. I know it
I hear
takes
you.
time and everything, but I just feel like I'm just, I have no wins, and I keep getting like losses and losses, and my confidence is like low.
I understand. Well, first of all, I wanted to say that you're not going back to work because being a mom is a full-time job, arguably even harder. Don't know if
Mhm.
there are any moms listening in, but give us a shout out if you're a mom. Let's support Biljana here. And I totally also get the whole, I went back to do some, learning and
Mhm.
see if that's going to improve my chances. So tell me a little bit, what were you doing before taking that boot camp? What was your career looking like? What was the role that you were in?
So my experience is within the fashion industry. I went to FIT in New York, Fashion Institute of Technology. My first job out of school was in production management. I've done that for 5 years. After having my first child, I stopped working, and while I wasn't working within those 10 years, it's not like I wasn't doing anything. Like, I started a drop shipping business for shoes, then I started
Wow.
a tea business. Then, we moved from, the US to Macedonia. My husband had a company. Then I worked for his company as like a quality assurance manager. So I just feel like it's so hard to sell myself to anybody because my background is so like all over the place.
Hmm.
And now it's like I'm trying to transition into tech. And I know you talk about like the lily pad leap, and it's like I don't have any kind of lily pad. And I feel like maybe I should kind of like, I don't know, reassess my experience and figure out like maybe there's a different approach for me to try to get into tech instead
Yeah,
of just like jump ship
I hear
all.
you.
Yeah.
I hear you. I'm actually very intrigued when you describe your entrepreneurial, you know,
Yeah.
little endeavors that you've done here and there. What compelled you to take that development boot camp?
I have always been like interested in web development, especially when I started to do like the drop shipping website. I worked with Shopify, and I just found it
Mm.
so fascinating that our vision was coming into life on this website, and I was like, wow, I could do that. And I just found it interesting changing the banners for sales and putting the pictures up and trying to pick like the content and the pictures, and I just loved all of that. And at that time, I tried to figure out if I could do it. And I was like, no, I can't. I have to go back to school. Like, I wasn't aware of all the boot camps and other ways of learning it. So I never really like pursued it. And then when the pandemic happened, I was out of a job, and I was, all this free time at home, and started taking like the Udemy courses, and it was just like rekindling my passion for it, and just realizing, like the opportunity to work remote, the flexibility, the money. I like the balance between the creativeness and the like problem solving. It's just like a whole package, it makes me feel fulfilled. Like it's not just a paper pushing job. It's more than that. I just like the whole idea of it. I don't know, the whole everything. Learning these like coding languages, working on the computer, then seeing it on the screen and like, oh, I built that. And then being able to even like create a business out of it. Like you have control,
Mm,
level of control.
interesting. So you must have gotten into the fashion industry for a reason. I'm curious. Like, was it all bad or did you enjoy any aspect of it?
Um, so I mean, I was very young, and I didn't really like know what I wanted to do with my life, and it just sounded like something fun to do. And when I got into it, I really wasn't crazy about it. It was just really superficial. And I actually didn't, I knew like once I had my child that I didn't want to go back into the fashion industry. So it's not something that I would, unless I owned my own, like if I created my own brand or something like that. But other than that, no.
So you just, sort of got into it without really having a strong interest. It was
Kind of.
accidental. You just got pulled into it. You thought it was going to turn into
Yeah,
something, but it didn't end up being that way. That kind of reminds me of
right.
what happened to me when I got into software engineering. I remember watching the Hacker movie, and I'm like, oh
Mhm.
my God, I'm going to get to break into all these systems or like fight with hackers. And, that's all I could think about. And that's the reason why I got into it. And then I realized, oh my God, I am staring at a computer and finding a bug in 1,000 lines of code. I don't know if I want to do this for the rest of my life.
Right, right. Like disillusioned of what it really actually it is.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, cool. Now, the interesting thing that you shared with me was that if you had your own brand,
Yeah.
and by the way, does anyone identify with that? Like, give me a like if you identify with that. At some point, whether it's now or before in your career, you got into a career thinking that it was going to be a certain thing, and then you realize, oh my God, that's not what I thought it was going to be. Okay, so one question that I asked you that got me curious was when you said, if I had my own brand, it would be different. And so let us think hypothetical. If you won the lottery today,
Yeah. Yeah.
because I brought you all these good vibes and luck, and you win the lottery and you win $1 million.
Yeah.
Nothing standing in your way, no skill set standing in your way. You could do whatever the heck you want to do. What would you do? Like, let's say you get, I have a feeling it would be starting your company. What
It
would
would.
that company be about?
So I don't know. That's the thing. It's like when I started the tea business, which was like prior to moving here, I really enjoyed it. I was doing
Oh,
all the farmers markets, and I just loved sourcing like the different teas and coming up with the different blends and all of that stuff. I just, I think maybe I would open up. I don't know. I'm like in the air. I don't know. Like that's the thing. I just feel so.
remember, nothing is standing in your
I
way. I'm
know.
telling you, like,
It
I'm
would
a
definitely
good
be like
godmother. Here's your magic
building something.
wand. What would it be?
I mean, it would definitely be building something. I just don't
Building
know what.
something.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. So hypothetically, you mentioned that tea market, right? You got
Mhm.
excited when you were talking to me about it.
Mhm.
So what aspect of that business that you were doing day to day that you truly, truly enjoyed?
Mhm. I liked like coming up with the branding for it. I loved coming up with like the logo and figuring out who's my demographic, who's my market,
Mm,
how am I going to promote to them. I loved like interacting with the customers, explaining to them about the product and all that. I just like that aspect of it.
that makes sense. And then what did you not enjoy about it? Because with every profession, even I
Yeah.
love this job like the most in my whole life, but there's always like some small thing that I don't enjoy, and that's totally okay because that's part of growth and that's something that I'd potentially outsource in the future. So you as an
Right.
entrepreneur with a magic wand building this tea market business, what would you prefer outsourcing to someone else?
Probably like trying to like I'm good at starting stuff, but then like trying to elevate it to the next level. It's like I get stuck. I don't know what to do next.
What do you mean by elevating it to the next level? So going back to that specific
Making it
concrete
profitable,
example,
like making it
making it
profitable.
profitable. Okay.
Yeah, like how to generate an income from it that's
Mm,
substantial enough to make it a stream of income that I don't have to work.
got it. So it was the monetization part that you struggled with, and that's why you didn't continue with it.
Yeah, and we moved here, so it was. I probably would have continued with it if we didn't move here, but
Interesting.
yeah.
Okay. Um, was there like, was it an online e-commerce site that you've built?
Hmm.
What was it built on?
Shopify.
Okay. And did you enjoy that aspect of figuring out the configuration and building it?
The front end part of it, I enjoyed, like coming up with having the photo shoots for the pictures and figuring out how we're gonna display it on the website, and
Okay.
that's
So was there any struggle doing that, getting the website launched? Were there aspects of it that were like, oh my God, this is so annoying? Or was it all like amazing?
amazing
Even
with
the
that.
even the nitty-gritty of it, like the configuration and all that stuff, you enjoyed
Yeah,
that
I mean,
too?
Shopify I think handles most of it, but like yeah, I liked like the whole inventory part of it and all that. There wasn't anything that I had to like that was hard through
Okay,
Shopify.
got it. All right. So I wanted to dig into that because I wanted to understand, software development is a very broad thing. And I wanted to understand what part of software development lifecycle you enjoy the most.
Hmm.
So as you're talking to me through this, it sounds to me that you love the discovery part. You love like
Mhm.
understand the client, what they need, what they want. Um, I think that based on the little that I know about you and our interaction, I feel like you're a very empathetic person. You understand the customer. And there were some elements from the fashion industry that you've been in that I see are a common thread in this as well. There is the photo shoot aspect. There is the visual aspect. How do we draw the customer in?
Mhm.
How do we attract them? How do we build something that aligns to their needs? Okay.
Mhm.
Something that came into my mind is when you said that while you love building things, you struggle a little bit with completing it. So
Mhm.
I usually have a career archetype quiz that I get all of my clients to complete when I work with them, just so that we really zone in on what that zone of genius, what aspects of roles they enjoy, so that we can identify what the next career move is for them, or what that ideal job that's congruent with who they naturally are as a person. So there is a type of people that are completer finishers. I don't think you're that kind of person. I feel you're more of a big picture person.
Mhm.
And then the other hint that I'm getting is when you're talking to me about Shopify, yes, it is an out of the box solution. We're not going too deep when we're not doing custom development. There's some configuration involved. But my sense is, yes, you want to see the finished product, but you wouldn't be overly sad if you weren't the one doing the coding and programming. You would maybe enjoy working with a team doing that, but you would be sad if you were not in front of the client asking them questions and figuring
Mhm.
out what it is that you want, right? And
Yeah.
so part of me is not 100% sold into I want to go too deep into development. My sense is maybe you did the boot camp just to get like that exposure to what it's like building software. But would you be overly sad if you weren't building the nitty gritty of the software? I don't think so. You would want to be part of it, but it doesn't sound to
Mhm.
me like you would be sad if you weren't hands on keyboard. You would certainly be sad if you weren't part of the information gathering. And so there are a lot of roles out there that are more on the business side of software
Mhm.
development that you can
Mhm.
get into that are probably an easier transition than
Mhm.
going into hardcore, I want to be a developer and I want to learn React and I want to build the interface. Okay.
Mhm.
So, being someone who has been in the fashion industry and understands things inside out and maybe even had the e commerce exposure, I would think that you would act more as a subject matter expert of that industry, or you would be that person who knows how customers think, because I feel that's part of your zone of genius, right?
Mhm.
And developers are not always involved in that. Although I was an agile coach and I also was a product manager and I always advocated to have developers as part of these conversations, but they didn't go deep into it, right? Because they're
Mhm.
busy coding, they're busy implementing, they're busy being finishers, completers,
Mhm.
right? And so
Mhm.
something that you might want to consider that would actually be more believable if you built a brand around it. And I always teach people to build brands, I call them influencer brands,
Mhm.
where you create enough authority and credibility for hiring managers to come to you versus you knocking on doors. Because what you're describing to
Mhm.
me is I'm knocking on doors and people are not answering. And
Mhm.
I mean, it's not bad where, I mean, I've seen worse where people basically tell me they've applied and they haven't gone a single interview. It sounds like your conversion rate is about 17%, right? From
Mhm.
the knocking doors, 17% of those door knocks are getting you interviews. But that's still painful because I don't know about you, like when I was a job seeker, like I didn't want to spend my whole day knocking on doors. Like I felt that at that point in my
Mhm.
career, I paid my dues and I worked hard. I don't want to have to beg someone or convince them to give me a chance. Like an actor, like basically a novice actor who's auditioning and people slam the door at them, right?
That's what
And
I
that,
feel like because
yeah.
yeah.
And I just don't want you to feel that way, especially as someone who's already been in a career and was
Mhm.
well established to some extent, right? Maybe it was more like the joy that was missing for you, but it sounds to me like you were doing well in that career, right?
Yeah.
So you gotta just find something that's more transferable. And to me, it's sometimes people feel like it's a competency thing, but it's not actually a competency thing. It's
Mm-hmm.
more a thing that's not in alignment with who you are. You're a creative
Mm-hmm.
person and you want to be talking to people and you have an eye for design. You talk to me about, the logo and the branding. You literally use the word branding. And so why not focus on that versus being behind the scenes, doing the development and the coding?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like I don't know, I'm always like self-sabotaging myself in the head, like I'm not good enough, I'm not good enough. You have to have like a design background for any of that kind of stuff, and I don't, but it's what I enjoy the most out of.
Yeah, you were in fashion. You naturally have an amazing eye for design. Not everyone is able to
Mhm,
actually pinpoint something that looks good or things that, when put together, aesthetically look very good. So I would look into design. I would look into digital, marketing organizations. I honestly feel that you can really leverage your knowledge for e-commerce fashion. You can
mhm,
keep that as a common denominator and then
mhm,
only change the role, right? That would
mhm,
be a lot easier. But a role that allows you to speak to clients and really get to know them. It could be
mhm,
product management, it could be design, whatever. I'm a kind of person who tells people not to get hung up on title, but having that clearly articulated in your mind as one of your decision making criteria will help you narrow that role better. Does that make sense?
mhm. Yes.
And I think just telling yourself that this is the reason this isn't working out is not because of competency. The funny thing is sometimes we take certain things as a challenge because we want to prove something to ourselves that we're
Mhm,
competent, but then
mhm,
all we're doing is just creating friction. This is not about competency. I'm sure that if you had the passion and if this was naturally aligned with who you are, you would have no problems picking up coding and just spending hours, debugging code.
mhm,
But that's not in alignment with who you are. You love talking to people and you love learning about them. And, another question that I ask people in my career archetype quiz is, who do you care about the most? Do you care about just the customer? Do you care about building products that delight customers? Do you care more about the people within the organization and the process? Or do you care more just about the product and the process? Developers fit into just product and process.
mhm.
This is why sometimes you have developers who are like, yeah, just shelter me from customers. I don't want to talk to them. I just want to be a mad scientist in my basement, building the most amazing product, coming up with an innovation and doing it in the best way possible. Do you see yourself in that bucket where you're in a basement figuring that out like a mad scientist?
No, I have all these ideas, like I have another business idea and I need to, like I don't have the skill set to build the application, and it's driving me crazy because I should, but it's like I have this idea, it's a great idea, I think it'd be amazing, and
Yes. So you're a plant. And this is why I'm saying that you really should be part of a team where you
mhm,
count on that person to implement your idea
right,
versus you stressing yourself out and overwhelming yourself out with splitting your brain into, I'm going to come up with the ideas and I'm going to implement them myself.
right. Mhm.
Helpful?
Yes, makes sense.
Awesome. And we can definitely connect also offline and chat more about this.
Okay, sounds
All
good.
right.
Thank you, Nada.
You're very welcome. Awesome. All right. I'm sure a lot of you, fit into this bucket where you feel you need to be someone, but that's not really in alignment with who you are. And so it's very important to identify your natural tendency. Okay. The next person is Will. Will, I'm going to bring you on stage, and totally up to you if you want to turn your camera on or keep it off. It doesn't matter to me. Beautiful. Hello, my friend.
Hello, how are you?
Good. So, tell me a little bit more about what's going on so that we can help you.
Yeah, so I'm a lead product designer for a large bank in the States. I work with investing. I've been a lead for a little while now, and I'm really just trying to figure out how to go to the next level, right? I want to be more of a thought leader. I want to, I'm leading a team, but I'm not a true leader in the company.
Mm,
And I'm struggling to get to that next level.
awesome. Thank you for sharing. So, what is your definition of true leadership?
I think it's having more of an impact on where the organization's going, you know, having innovative products that really make a difference for customers. And for me, it's just having a larger impact. I
Mm.
love building teams, I love helping individuals, but, I want to help move the company forward.
It sounds to me like what's going on is that you're not getting enough decision making power. Am
Yeah.
I okay? Cool. And what do you think is the reason for that, that you're not getting decision making power?
I don't know. I mean, so I've been doing this for a while, 15 plus years. And so I feel like the knowledge is there, the experience is there. When I first became a lead, when I took that transition from being a designer, where you're
Hmm.
very hands-on, to leading a team and doing less of the hands-on, boy, did I struggle with imposter syndrome.
Yeah,
And I still do, but I overcame a lot of that. But so that was a barrier. So right now, I'm actually not sure what I'm missing to get to the next level, which is why we're talking.
I hear you. Have you ever had conversations with, the person that you're reporting into about this, about your career aspirations, about wanting to widen your scope, make a bigger
Mhm.
impact?
Yeah. So I'm a remote employee, and I'm not in one of the main centers where
Oh
this
dear.
company is based out of. I
Mhm.
think that's one of the issues is I think they see leadership qualities. It's just it's a big bank. They're a little bit old school, right? So they want people on site, which I think is kind of an old way of thinking. They
Yeah.
brought me in during the pandemic, right?
Mhm.
They liked getting access to new talent, but now they're bringing everybody back to the centers. And I think they've kind of written me off a little bit because I'm not at one of the main centers.
Oh, and did you ask what led to that?
I, it's I think it's silly because it doesn't matter where you live. It's, your thinking, your drive,
Yeah.
the culture you create, stuff like that. Um, and storytelling, I'm still working on that. That's a lifelong skill. And I teach my designers, stop telling me what I can already see. Like they
Mm.
present a design and I'm like, okay, thank you for just speaking to everything we can all see on the meeting. I don't say that in the meeting, but you know what I mean?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then it's like, well, what story should we be telling about our customer and how they're going to be engaging with this design? That would be more impactful. And you would grow as a designer if you can tell the story.
I understand. And that is completely correct. Often I tell people, show me, don't tell me, right?
Totally.
So here's my question for you. Do you feel that you are telling the right story to your leadership team?
I guess not.
Mm. So what part of the story do you feel you're not telling them?
Hmm. So I think it's multiple things. I don't know if I've been given the full opportunity.
Mhm.
Um, and then maybe I need to put, I don't know if you know Simon Sinek. Yeah,
Of course
love
I
him.
do.
Yeah, okay. And he talks about being a giver, right? That was transformative for me. Like, stop worrying about, your ego and whether people think you're smart or not, and start giving to your audience. So maybe I need to focus more on what they're looking for versus what I'm looking for. I don't know.
That I hear you on that one. And I'm going to show you something real quick because something that I teach people when it comes to, I would say, articulating their value, right? A lot of career coaches, resume writers, whatever, they fixate on the resume, but the resume is just a tool, right? We got to get to the root cause of why we're struggling to convince, hiring managers, our current boss, whatever, that what we're doing, that we are able to do the job that we want to do, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Whether it is at the next level or a current, opening in their organization. So let me see if I can share something real quick. Uh, Let us see here. Of course. There we go. Okay. So you see this triangle here?
Hmm.
Okay, wonderful. So this is what I teach people. You actually hit on one of the things in my triangle or pyramid rather, reciprocating. So people will tend to want to go out of their way and do something for you or something that you're looking for that you want from them and reciprocate if you are basically showing them that you care and you're going out of your way, right? It's like a two-way street. So something that you shared with me is you feel like you need to go out of your way more, that you need to care a little bit more about what is it that they need and what they're looking for,
Hmm.
right? So I would start to brainstorm what that looks like in the whole design practice in your organization. What is missing? What do the more junior designers struggle with? Can I go out of my way, either create some thought leadership, a framework, run it by my boss, maybe have some ideas, volunteer to lead, let's say, a session, a training session or whatever,
Hmm.
to prove that I am a leader and I can actually add more value. So an example of what I do that creates that reciprocating is basically creating a lot of content and listening to people and asking them questions through my DMs. What do you struggle with? Because I want to basically give value, right? And when you give value, and I know a lot of people tend to complain about this. Oh my God, this interview, they want me to like do this case study. They're going to steal my intellectual property, blah, blah, blah. And the advice that I give people is try not to think about it this way, right? Because if you think about it that way, then it's going to just create negativity. Why not think about it from a positive sense? Let us say, even if you created that, thought leadership and you went out of your way, whether it's an interview where you complete a case study and you give them a whole bunch of ideas, or within your organization where you volunteer and come up with a framework and give a lot of value. Let us totally assume that they don't reciprocate and they don't appreciate you and don't recognize you. It's not a waste because it allowed you to exercise that muscle of thought leadership and you can use that somewhere else, right? So that is a very key thing that I would definitely advise you to do. Now, the other parts of the pillar, and if people are actually interested in me going through a training that talks about this a bit more, like put in the comments and let me know, and I'll launch an event that's related to this. But this is basically my pyramid to position yourself as a leader who's an influencer versus what I was talking about, with the previous person who was asking, someone who's constantly knocking on doors. And that can even happen within your organization where you're trying so hard to like convince them, please give me a chance, let me do more, right? But
Hmm.
instead of doing that, we want to show them that we're capable by building a brand that positions you as an influencer.
Hmm.
So we gotta really get clear on what that superpower is that you have that none of your peers have. You need to be very clear about what that is. Do you know what that is by any chance?
Um, I think it's collaboration, innovation, and vision.
It's got to be one thing that you're
One
great at.
thing,
Yeah.
mm,
I'll tell you.
collaboration.
Okay. So compared to all of your peers who are team leads, what makes you different?
I think strategically. I think about, the North Star. I think about, where should we be, not where we are.
Okay. And what problem are you solving with that superpower?
Well, I think it depends on the product, right? But you're always trying to improve outcomes for your customers, and just be a leader in your space, right?
Mhm. So I want you to think about this more after this call because what you're describing to me is what I call the surface level problem. So it's
Mhm.
kind of like if someone comes to me and says, "You're a career coach, what is your superpower?" And I just said something like, "Yeah, I help you build a resume and a LinkedIn profile and all that stuff." These are surface level problems that people have.
Mhm.
But the secret level problem, the problem that where you'd literally have to have like 5 drinks before you actually tell me what the problem is that, a lot of people have no idea what they want to do in their career. They have forgotten what their sweet spot is. And what that's causing them to do is show up to work and feel like they're not enough. Right.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so you're in UX, so we understand empathy, right?
Mhm.
Go into the emotional stuff.
Mhm.
Try to figure out what type of emotion your team feels when that problem is not solved for them. And it's got to be your team, not just the customer.
Mhm.
Because the thing is, if you are trying to move up as a leader, you got to think more about the people you're overseeing and
Mhm.
not just the customer, because that's what differentiates a leader from an individual contributor. Is now you're delegating, now you're building a team, now you're building a design organization to do this on your behalf versus just thinking about me, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
So think about that a bit more. Almost build an empathy map for your team. That's what I want you to do in order to
Okay.
figure out what that problem that you're solving is, the
Mhm.
secret level one. I'm sure you do this with your customers because they're going to say to you, "Yeah, we
Yep.
want a design look that way." Well, why do you want it to look that way? What are we solving here? Right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So instead of doing it for your customers, do it for your team so that you can
Interesting.
build a business case for you to move up.
Never thought about it that way. Yeah. 'Cause I'm always focused on the customer. But
Yes,
you're right.
time to join forces with your team and get them to help you, right?
Yeah.
And
Okay.
then the other part is that I want you to come up with a unique approach or framework. So think, in the UX world, the design thinking, framework is, a common framework that a lot of people know and it's popular and it has created authority. So what is something similar that you can come up with, but like let's say a 3-step framework or more, it's fine, that you can pitch to your leadership as a thought leader that will help solve their design organizational problems so
Mhm.
that people are more high performing. So that in a nutshell, my friend, is what I advise you to do.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
That does make sense. Thank you
Yeah.
so much. I never thought about it as, because I'm always trying to say, hey, if we do right by the customer, we're going to grow as a company, right? But you're saying no, it's more about the team and the culture we're building within the design organization.
Well,
Uh,
your end goal, obviously, for every organization is to delight the customer so that the organization can remain competitive and profitable. But if you don't have a strong team to
mhm.
be able to achieve that goal, then that's not going to happen.
Right.
And so, how can we, and it's not like, carrot and stick, right? Because we're also dealing with complex beings, aka designers, who
Hmm.
value fulfillment more than just money. And so how do we motivate them? How do we engage them in order to become high performing
Hmm.
and actually execute on these things?
Maybe it's because I feel we lacked vision for our product. Maybe it's hey, if we had a more clear, 1 to 5 year vision that people could get excited about, You would
Yes.
increase engagement from your design team because they would know what they're working toward.
Yes. And look at that vision from, put yourself, pretend that it was, it was 5 years ago for you in your design career, and ask yourself, what did I care about at that point?
Right.
And speak to it from that angle. And also, do your own design thinking, process of having one-on-ones with your team members and trying to understand what their frustrations are, right? So this can be a fun activity for you. Even if it doesn't end up getting you promoted, at a minimum, it's actually going to build stronger rapport with your team members. And it's an activity that you can talk about, in an interview if things don't work out, right?
Right. No, that's great advice. Thank you. I've done some ideation sessions that I did think helped the team think more big picture and get
Yeah.
excited and work together more collaboratively. And that's becoming my pitch, is like I'm the collaborator. I bring teams together. But again, stop talking about I, right? Start
Yeah,
focusing on
we,
yeah.
and make it about them and their benefit versus just the customer. Like,
Right.
how is doing X, Y, and Z going to help you grow as a designer? This is why. Because I understand that you said to me that you're frustrated, that let's say you struggle with UX research, and so let's do X and Y and Z. If you go through this X, Y, and Z framework, it's going to help you overcome the frustration that you shared with me, which in the end will translate to delighted customers. But my sense is you're focusing too much on the customer side and not focusing enough on your, treat your designer team as customers as well.
Yeah. And it's like, if your team is fully engaged and happy, they'll probably do better work for the customer, right?
Exactly. And not only that, but your team is going to vouch for you. Leadership is going to start hearing, well, Will is amazing leader. Like, oh my God, I just had a one-on-one with him and it was transformational. We had this amazing session. Then you're not going to have to vouch for yourself too much, right?
Sure.
They're going to want you. They're going to want you in those critical meetings. They're going to want you on those critical projects.
Good point. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Awesome. All right. And we can definitely connect offline as well.
Okay.
All right.
Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Okay. So we got one more caller, and I am going to bring you on stage. Let's do it. How are you doing?
Hi, and I'm doing good. How are you?
Good. Why don't you take a minute to introduce yourself?
Hi, I am Paritosh Tiwari, and I am a graduate student at the University of Texas at Dallas. And currently, I'm majoring in information technology and management. I have some experience working as a software developer back in India, and then I transitioned to. Then I came to United States to pursue masters.
Awesome. So exciting. So tell me, what do you feel you're struggling with the most that I can help hopefully unblock you on?
Yeah, I wanted the review on my LinkedIn profile, like how to make my profile recruiter magnet. One more thing, like which I'm facing the issue right now, is I'm not very sure if that's an issue or not. That like I have worked as a software engineer back in India, and after that I have done an internship in United States. So there is this difference which I see in experience, that first as a software engineer, then software engineer intern. So does that throw recruiter out, that okay, what's going on here? So
very valid question. Okay, so I see that you were a software engineer for about 4 years before you came to the US. Is that accurate?
yes.
All right. So it's not like you're new. I would say you're intermediate. Where do you put yourself, in what bucket? Do you find yourself more of an intermediate, developer, or what exactly?
Yeah, I think medium level developer.
Okay. So, what compelled you to do an internship? Was it just part of the master's program?
Yeah, it was part of the master's program.
And would you say that the level that you were put in that organization as an intern, is it intermediate or is it advanced, or where like what's the complexity?
I would say that it was kind of a medium to advanced level role,
Hmm.
because that was a single that I was working in a single project, like working as an individual. So, like, I have to gather the requirement and talk to the stakeholders, and then I have to develop the application. So all those things I have to take care of. So I would say it was intermediate to mid-level, mid-senior level position.
Did it feel more challenging that you what you were doing before in your previous roles?
Uh, yeah, it was kind of interesting because in my previous role, I was working with a team, with a group of people, like
Yeah.
sometimes a small team, 4 people, sometimes 8, 10 people. I worked back in India. But when coming for internship, I was working for working individually. So yeah, it kind of uh, I would not say challenging, but uh, I felt good because I have to take care of the architecture, developing the architecture,
Okay.
thinking about the business logic, thinking about the technology which I can use to achieve my goal. So I would say, yeah, I felt great in the role back then.
Okay, makes sense. All right. So, can I share my screen to go over your LinkedIn profile?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, awesome. So, let's do it. My big question for you is, what is the type of role that you want to land?
So I am looking for looking for software developer roles basically.
Full
Uh,
stack?
yeah, full stack
Okay.
developer, as a
Hmm.
full stack developer, and yeah, I'm learning other technologies. Like, at start of my career, I worked with Windows application, and then I transitioned to web applications, and like, I've used a few of the new technologies on full stack development. So yeah, I want to pursue, I want to go as a full stack developer. And regarding the domain, so, like, the domain is again one more thing which I'm not very sure about, because like, back when I was working in a finance domain, insurance. I worked on finance, insurance, mortgage, real estate, those domains,
Hmm.
like working with Fidelity National Financial,
Yeah.
as they do all those things. And then when I was working for Strek as an internship, it was healthcare plus biotech domain, bioengineering domain. So I kind of have worked on equally on finance, insurance, and real estate. So I'm not very clear about the domain, but the important thing is I like technology. I like to learn new things, implement new things. So my personal project, sometimes it feels like I'm more into real estate domain, because my personal project right now, I was developing an application which was on leasing and subleasing of apartments. So sometimes it feels like, but I'm not very sure about the domain thing.
Got it. Okay, so there are a couple of things going on here. I think you were there when I went through that triangle, that pyramid, where I'm talking about positioning yourself as an influencer, right?
Yeah.
Versus just, the thing is, we want to try as much as possible to not come across as novices or amateurs. We want to try to really figure out what that zone of genius is and show people why we're different in order for hiring managers to pick us. So, one thing that I'm seeing here, my friend, is right off the bat, I'm looking at your LinkedIn profile and I'm thinking he's a student. He's a student. That's what's flashing in my head. He's a student. He's a student. He's still, a newbie. And I haven't even scrolled down your LinkedIn profile. I see that as something that's very common in people who get their master's done. And one of my clients was guilty of it. He did his master's in entrepreneurship, in innovation, entrepreneurship. Um, it was an MBA program, and he had like the university banner and same thing. And I was like, that's literally the biggest reason why you're not getting hits, is because a recruiter or a hiring manager will tend to not want to hire someone fresh out of school. It's the reality. It's not because I think that's the right thing for them to do, but that's just what it is. Okay. So they're thinking we're looking for an intermediate to senior developer, and then they almost think like you're right out of school and you've never coded before outside of school. They're going to hesitate. That does not create authority. So while you might have thought that, oh yeah, if I put University of Texas, they're going to see that, oh, it's such a, prestigious university, etc. No, I would get rid of the banner, and I would not put that. Either put something that is, very like aligned with you being a backend developer, full stack, developer. Maybe you want to have almost like a banner that reflects one of the, applications that you worked on, whatever, right? Just not that banner. That's number one. Number two, your heading, graduate student at UTD. No, you're not a graduate student. That's not what you do. You're a software engineer. So just own it and let that be the first thing that they see. Okay.
Yeah.
They're not going to hire you based on you being a graduate student. They're going to hire you based on you being a developer who built end-to-end applications that are robust and have a high quality. And so let's just say that we've been doing this for a while, right? So software engineer. And I would even look into, let's say, software developer, the common keyword that recruiters would look for. That's what you need to put in. Maybe even like if you want to get into cloud, make that your niche, right? So cloud, software developer. I like that you have the technologies, ASP.NET, Angular, all that stuff, because they're going to search on that. So that's good. Keep that. Finance, insurance, real estate, that's fine. You can have that in there too, in case they are looking for someone who has experience within the domains. And while you as a developer, you're not a business person, you can as long as it's the technologies that are more important than the industry or the domain. But it's good to have the domains anyway, just in case there's a company out there within financial services looking for a developer. You already understand the business side of financial services. Then it's going to be easier for you to code and build a product and understand the requirements within financial services or real estate or insurance. So that's fine. I would put that in. Unless you're telling me that I hate those domains and I never want to have anything to do with them, then you can remove them, because, you might be pigeonholing yourself a little bit by having them if you don't want to do any of those domains at all. But to me, listing them is totally fine. It shows that you've been in a variety of domains. And if those are the domains that you've been in and you don't mind doing them again, then it's fine. So that's my first thing for you is, get rid of this. And get rid of this part. Get rid of the banner. Let's not position you as a student anymore. You're an experienced person.
Yeah.
The open to work, there's a lot of controversy on it. I will let you decide what you want to do. My perspective is I don't want it to even come across that you're searching, because it's kind of like reverse psychology. Think about it this way, right? If you're going and buying something from someone, if they're openly saying that I need a buyer versus they're so busy, like they have like buyers lined up, they're not going to advertise they're looking for a buyer. So I would recommend that you make this only visible to recruiters. They're still going to be able to see that you're open to work, but only people who are actually sourcing are going to see that versus everyone. And then they'll say, oh, he's passively looking. He's open to opportunities, but he's not like desperately like looking, right? Not that I think that anyone is desperate when they put this on, but it's just like a almost psychological thing. You know, some people who have open to work end up finding jobs, and some people who don't have the banner also find jobs. To me, I'm not too hung up on this. I'm more hung up on how do we come across like we're not really like trying too hard to look. And so and how do we build authority and confidence? So the student thing needs to be gone for sure. That I can tell you. Okay. Questions so far?
Yes.
Go ahead.
So one of the question is like in heading, I have seen in a lot of places that in heading, uh, there is something which is added as like ex software engineer at that company or this company. How much effect does that thing have, or is it important, or like?
Fidelity is a very well-known organization, right? So if you want to put that in, then do that. I would just maybe even, if I were you, well, it depends, right? Because you have this as well. And that's another thing that I wanted to get into. I feel like putting the word intern, again, it just clashes with that whole influencer brand, right? People associate intern with inexperience, with apprentice, with student. And the thing is, the only reason you did an internship is because you went and got your master's degree. And my hunch is you did it because that's your pathway to coming into the US. I had to go through that as well. But I'm not going to say, oh, you know, like I'm an apprentice, right? I'm just going to own it, right? I would prefer if instead of saying intern, just say you were a software developer. And you can say that this was a contract because an internship is a contract. And in the interview, you can give them more detail that as part of your master's degree, you had to do this, you know, internship or contract. And that's the reason it was 4 months only. Okay. LinkedIn does not need to be up to date. So if you want, you can remove the end date here, or you can remove this altogether and keep this open. It's up to you. If you feel that this project was significant and it shows more complexity, then I would keep it and I would remove the end date. And the reason I say remove the end date is from a LinkedIn algorithm perspective. If there is an end date on your most recent role, it pushes you down the search results in the recruiter platform. This is SEO sensitive. Your heading is SEO sensitive is the reason you get found. Part of it is also stickiness. If someone lands and, okay, so they click on your name, that's how they found you. We got to also create a little bit more authority in our heading so that the person keeps reading. And then your basically, if there is an end date here, from a searchability perspective, you're going to be at the bottom of the list. So I'm just letting you know that A, you're not obligated to keep your LinkedIn up to date. B, it's going to hurt you from an algorithm perspective having an end date. So that's a couple of things. Your about session, again, you know, I would actually lead with the fact that you have 4.5 years of experience, because here, I'm going to do a quick refresh and I'll show you what I'm seeing. I'm literally only seeing the first 3 lines. If I'm a recruiter in a hurry, deciding whether I should keep reading your profile or not, and all I'm reading is that you have a master's degree and you're a software engineer who combines technical and business acumen, that's not compelling enough for me. I'm looking for answers. I want to make a decision. What is important to me as a recruiter? I want to know how many years of experience you have, what type of languages, if you're a full stack developer or front end, right? Back end, whatever. Do you have cloud? Like, try to do that. Like, say that in the first 3 sentences to compel me to see more. So this to me is the gold. Make that your first 3 lines, right? So
Yeah.
that's what I recommend you do. And then I would actually, so you have, okay, you have the languages. Okay, good. You can even call that out and say specialties and just put that all in here. Then your experience section, don't just give me like high level stuff. Tell me a little bit more. So you talk about here, develop the console application for employee management, right? Give me a little bit of a story in terms of the product and the business, reason behind it. And at the end, how did you make life better? I see a little bit here, 70% increase in process efficiency, but I'm not clear as to what is it that you did that increased the process efficiency. So I can, for anyone who's, on this live, if you're interested, I can all send you my live or training where I actually built my own resume. And there is the exact architecture on how you build it. And I'm happy to also send it to you. So just connect with me offline and I'll do that.
Yeah, sure.
Awesome. So I threw a lot of information at you. To me, I think just making your niche a little bit clearer and then just getting rid of that student persona and just, making yourself come across as a more experienced developer.
Yeah.
Helpful?
Thank you for all the insights. Yeah, it is really helpful.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming in and sharing your questions with us. All right, everyone. If you are interested in being my next guest, of course, send me a DM, let me know. I love doing these lives. I love helping people. And do me a favor, if you found this helpful, please give me a like, comment, let me know. It's great feedback for me. And that is also going to help other people find this, right? Because people are not going to be able to find this opportunity if the algorithm doesn't, spread this and more people watch it. All right. And if you have any ideas on trainings that you want to see, lives that you want to see that are pertaining to a specific topic, then also share with me in the comments. All right. Hope you all have a wonderful rest of your week. My next live is going to be actually on Monday. And I will have actually my next live. I'm planning on having a training on how to build your influencer brand. So if that's something that would help you all, give me a like and hope you all have a wonderful rest of your week. Thank you so much for tuning in.